The issue of a family following a man who's called of God is a very critical issue for everybody in ministry, and it's not only for the missionary. Actually, it's an issue for anybody in any area of life, arena of life. A man is called to be a politician. Should his wife and children be called to politics? If a man is called to be a businessman or a lawyer, should his wife and children be called to being in the business and in the profession? So it's a larger question of life itself. The way I normally address that issue is the need to distinguish between passion and dimensions of life. Carey's passion, as well as the Moravian passion, Count von Zinzendorf said, I have one passion, it is he, it is he, it is he alone. And anytime we take that singular passion for Jesus Christ and replace that passion with an alternate dimension, where I make my family my passion, my wife my passion, my profession my passion, immediately we fall into a sense of idolatry. And I think there'll be an ongoing tension throughout life. The question, should a wife and family be called to the husband's ministry? It'll be great if they are called, but we are aware of situations as early as Abraham. I don't know if Sarah was called to leave the Ur of the Chaldees, but Peter makes a very, very important statement that Abraham was called of God, and Sarah, because she was called to the marriage, was willing to follow Abraham. And I think that has happened in Carey's case. And the costs of that kind of a commitment. The bond of marriage cannot be broken, and I don't believe Carey ever wanted to break that, and he did not. When his wife was seriously ill, he said he could not put her away. The bond of marriage cannot be broken, but the call of God cannot be avoided. And the bond of marriage comes underneath the call of God. And that's why at the very beginning I said Carey's vision simply captivated him, and he came down with the strategies and capacity coming out of that vision and coming out of that mission.
When William Carey and his family set sail from Dover, England on June 13, 1793, little did he realize the true dangers that lay ahead. The 5 months ocean voyage from England to India was fraught with all kinds of dangers. But on board, Carey began to learn the Bengali language because already God had planted within his heart the vision of translating the Scriptures into the language of the people of India. He went to India without the official approval of the East India Company. This was a great monopoly which controlled access into India, and they forbade missionaries to enter the country for fear that their business practices would be disrupted. Eventually, though, Carey's mission to India resulted in the passage of the India Bill by the British Parliament in 1813, led by the great evangelical statesman William Wilberforce. This opened up India and other territories of the British Commonwealth for the sending forth of missionaries with the gospel. And of course there were the great difficulties of disrupting his family, of uprooting Dorothy. She herself had received no such call as Carey himself had to be a missionary. She was, as someone has called her, a reluctant missionary. And yet she went along to face the hazards of life in a new country. We've just heard her sister Kitty berating Carey for subjecting his family to this kind of experience in India. And Carey's own tension, being torn between his love for his family and their welfare and well-being, and this single-minded sense of obedience to God's will above all else. Of course, the Careys were simply one of many, many missionary families who have had to say goodbye and farewell to their family, their friends, even their native lands, to follow the call of God into many distant places. One of those people who, some 20 years later, left her home in North America, also to go to India and then on to Burma, was a remarkable woman. Her name, Anne Hazeltine Judson. And she wrote these words in her own diary about what it was like to leave her family. Still my heart bleeds, O America, my native land. Must I leave thee? Must I leave thee, Bradford, my dear native town, where I spent the pleasant years of childhood, where I learned to say the name of my mother, where I learned the endearments of friendship and tasted all the happiness this world could afford, where I learned also to value a Savior's blood and to count all things but loss in comparison with the knowledge of Him. Farewell, happy, happy scenes, but never, no, never to be forgotten. Well, Dorothy did not have such a good experience in India, and yet we remember her and all of those who in generations succeeded have followed the example of those who, as Jesus said, have left all behind to follow Him.